My name is Ryan Callahan. I'm 33 years old, I live in Bakersfield, and until a few months ago, I'd never crossed the Arizona desert alone. If you're listening to this now, you might think I'm exaggerating. You might think it's just another one of those stories made up to scare road trippers. But I promise you, nothing I tell here will compare to what I actually experienced. I was on my way to Albuquerque for a work event. I left Bakersfield early, took I-40, and headed straight, confident I'd make it before dark. Everything was going well until my GPS started to glitch. First the audio, then the screen went black. When it came back on, the route had changed by itself. It told me to get off the interstate and onto a back road through the desert. I should have ignored it, but I was curious, tired, and the sign said it was a shortcut to Flagstaff. The GPS said it was 20 minutes shorter in the hellish heat. Of course I will come. The back road looked like something out of an old movie. Cracked asphalt, no shoulder, crooked wooden posts every 100 meters. I drove for over half an hour without seeing a living soul. No trucks, no houses, no animals, just sand, rocks, and cacti. The sun began to set, and with it, my cell phone battery. When night fell, I realized I was lost. That's when I saw the sign. An arc of light flashing in the distance, red and orange, like old neon. Dust Valley Inn, vacancy, a roadside motel, just like the ones you see in horror movies. But at that moment, it felt like a relief. The parking lot was empty except for a rusty blue pickup truck backed into a corner. Lights were on in the reception area. I walked in. A bell jingled above the counter, and an old man stepped out from behind the curtain with a plastic smile. "Welcome to the Dust Valley Inn, sir. Callahan, Ryan Callahan. Just one night? That's it, just to rest a little." He pulled out a key from a hook, a real key, with a red keychain written in faded ink. "Room 108. This is the best we've got. Quiet. In the back, away from the road. You'll sleep like a baby." I signed a paper without reading it. He pushed the key in and handed me a simple hand-drawn map of the motel, with a red X where the room was. "Breakfast from 7 to 9. Don't enter the enclosed areas. And don't worry if you hear noises. The wind plays with the doors here." I smiled back, but something about his tone bothered me. It had a practiced cadence, as if he repeated it every day, even when no one showed up. I headed for the room. The outside hallway was long, creaky wood, lit by yellow sconces that cast more shadows than light. The doors to the other rooms were closed, but not locked. Some were ajar. I thought it was strange, but I kept walking to 108. The door to 108 had a strange mark near the handle, as if someone had scratched the number with their fingernails. The key fit easily. The room smelled of mildew and disinfectant, dark carpet, a double bed, covered with a worn brown bedspread, a tube TV in the corner, and a noisy air conditioner. There was an armchair in the corner, facing the window, and on the table, a Bible open in the middle, as if someone had left in the middle of reading. I thought it was weird, but I ignored it. I locked the door, threw myself on the bed, and let exhaustion overcome me. But when I closed my eyes, I heard 3 sharp knocks on the wall. I thought it was the next room. I ignored it. 3 more beats. I picked up my cell phone. No signal. I tried calling someone. No network bars. I stood up and put my ear to the wall. Silence. Total. I went back to bed. I passed out, and that's when I dreamed. I dreamed about the motel, but everything was upside down. The colors, the walls, the sky. The sign flickered inward, as if illuminating my chest, and a voice, husky, masculine, repeated, "Check-in confirmed, check-out, denied." I woke up in a cold sweat. The clock read 3:17 in the morning, and outside the window, someone was looking at me. The face disappeared as soon as I pulled the curtain. It was as if I had never been there, but I knew. I felt it. Someone was watching me. The sensation was as real as the cold sweat running down my back. I left the room and walked down the hallway outside barefoot, my eyes trying to adjust to the darkness. The desert night was absolute, the kind of pitch black that swallows things if you blink. I went to the next room, 110. Knock on the door. Nothing. I hit. Again, harder. The door creaked open on its own, revealing a completely empty room. The lights were off. The bed untouched. No sign of anyone staying there. But on the bathroom mirror, there was something written with a finger in the mist. "Ryan, don't look back." I shivered from head to toe. I turned quickly, expecting to find someone behind me. Nothing. Just the empty hallway, the darkness vibrating with the distant hum of the desert. I ran back to room 108 and locked the door. I turned over all the furniture, looking for cameras, microphones, anything. Nothing. But when I looked under the bed, I found a small, old cassette recorder with a label taped to it. "Play Me," written in capital letters. I sat on the edge of the bed, put on the headphones that were under the recorder and pressed the button. An old tape noise and then a deep, husky, familiar voice. My voice. "If you're listening to this, then you couldn't get out. You checked into room 108 thinking it was just a stopover. Just one night. But this place doesn't work that way. Here, time doubles. Logic fails. And checkout only happens when they decide." I interrupted the tape with a slap. I tried to rationalize. It must be a joke, a bizarre performance. Someone is having fun with me. But why my voice? I'd never been in that place before. I swore. I threw the recorder away and looked at the door, and that's when I realized. The room number was no longer 108. Now the sign said 208. I dashed down the hallway. I descended the stairs, which now seemed like they belonged to a different building. More modern, cleaner. A carpet, I swear, wasn't there before. When I reached the reception desk, the old man was no longer at the desk. In his place was a gray-haired woman with dry skin and unblinking eyes. "May I help you, sir?" "Yes, I'm in room 108, or 208 now, I don't know. I want to check out." She smiled, a smile that was just lips stretching, no teeth. Everyone says that. Like this, everyone wants to leave, but no one wants to remember. That's what keeps you hooked. Memory. I walked away slowly, confused. The lobby was full of new details. Frames on the wall with old photos. People smiling in front of the motel. But one of the photos stopped me in my tracks. It was a black and white image. 3 men standing in front of the Dust Valley Inn sign. The one on the left was identical to me. Same face, same haircut, same coat I was wearing at that moment. I looked at my reflection in the picture frame, and I swear to God for a second my eyes were white. I blinked. They were back to normal. I ran. I climbed the stairs. I knocked on every door. All locked. Not a voice, not a soul. Until I arrived at the door of 108 again. The sign had returned to normal. I entered slowly. On the bed was something new. A manila envelope with my name handwritten on it. And next to it, the room key, with a new keychain. Dust Valley Inn, 1966 edition. It didn't make sense. It was as if time had collapsed inside. But before I could open the envelope, I heard the TV turn on by itself. The image was blurry, static, hissing, and then a recording started. It was the motel lobby. The camera was shaking. It showed someone running. It was me, the same coat, the same confused look on his face, running desperately up the stairs. And behind me, a dark, blurry figure, like a shadow floating across the floor. The TV turned off. Someone knocked on the door. 3 times. Dry. Rhythmic. I looked through the keyhole. The corridor was empty, but the bathroom mirror is fogging up again. And this time, the message was different. "Stop running. You're already here." The night seemed to never end. I checked my watch. It was still 3:17 a.m., the same time as before. I tried resetting it. I took out the battery. I put it back in. Nothing changed. It was as if time were trapped inside that room. I looked back at the envelope on the bed. My hands were shaking when I opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper folded in thirds. The letters were typed as if from an old typewriter. The text read, "You're not the first Ryan Callahan, but it may be the last. If you want to leave, you need to remember what you blocked. You need to go back to the beginning. Room 108 is the door, but you've already passed through it." At the bottom of the sheet, as a signature, there was a word, mirror. I took an instinctive step toward the mirror. My reflection stared back at me, but something was wrong. Very wrong. My reflection blinked first, before me. I jerked away and stumbled over the edge of the bed. I stood up, my heart pounding. I went to the door. I unlocked it. I walked out. Empty corridor. But something was different. The color of the lamps, the floor, the smell. I started walking. The door numbers were in reverse order. Instead of 104, 105, 106, it was 601, 602, 603. I was no longer on the ground floor. Worse, I didn't remember going up. I followed the hallway. To the end, a narrow staircase led down. I descended quickly. I found the lobby. Only now, it was abandoned, dirty. Dust covered everything. The dead plants, the cracked counter, papers scattered across the floor, and the sign at the front desk said, "Closed since 1971. Like this? I ran to the front door. Locked. I knocked. I kicked. Nothing. I ran to the back. I found the kitchen. Broken tiles, destroyed cabinets. A light flickered on the ceiling. In the center of the kitchen, a wheelchair, and on top of it, a rag doll with button eyes and a little smile sewn with red thread. It held a paper tag handwritten on it. "Ryan, welcome back." I started to laugh. A nervous, desperate laugh. This is a prank, some kind of show, hidden cameras. That must be it. But deep down I knew. That wasn't a program. It wasn't a game. I went back to the hallway. The lights flickered. The air grew thicker. I began to hear whispers, disjointed phrases, children's voices, old people's, my own. "Check-in confirmed. You're back early, Ryan. Why don't you remember? It's your fault too." I covered my ears. I ran upstairs. Now the motel's layout had completely changed. Hallways curved inward, as if the building were folding in on itself. I passed a door with a strange number, 10. I went in. It was the same room, room 108, exactly the same. But there was someone sitting in the armchair with their back to me. A man with the same coat as me, same height, same posture. "Hello?" He didn't turn around. He just stood there. I approached slowly, sweating coldly. I touched his shoulder, and then he turned. It was me, but not as a reflection. He was older, dark circles, pale skin, dry lips. He stared at me with a blank stare. "You're back early, Ryan. It's not time yet." "Time for what?" He just raised his arm and pointed at the mirror. I turned around. There was no reflection in the glass, just a sentence written in dripping blood. "He never left." When I looked back at the chair, it was empty. I felt my mind crack. Reality inside was collapsing, and I was starting to remember that this wasn't my first time at the Dust Valley Inn, remembering something terrible. But every time the memory tried to emerge, something blocked it. A sound, an image, a scream. I went to the bathroom and washed myself. In the sink, next to the faucet, was a wet note, stuck with tape. "The door is not made of wood. The door is you." I sat on the cold bathroom floor, staring at the wet paper that said the door was me. It all sounded like a cheap metaphor from a self-help book. But there, inside that room, with the echo of whispers still vibrating off the walls, every word was a sentence. I staggered to my feet. The corridor outside seemed to pulse. The walls were breathing. Yes, they were breathing, expanding and contracting like a nicotine-stained lung, and I had to get out. I began opening every door I could find. Some led to rooms identical to mine. Others led to staircases that led to nothing. Literally, I opened one and there was only a gap, a drop into absolute darkness. At a door marked 0, I found an abandoned version of the lobby. Everything was filled with dust, debris, and papers. Hundreds of papers on the floor, all with names and phrases typed on them. John Mathers, never checked out. Rachel Liu, removed by force. Ryan Callahan, pending resolution. I leafed through the notes, my hands shaking. Among them, I found an old, dingy badge with my photo on it, but the date was 1966. I was born in 1989. The badge said, Ryan Callahan employee, maintenance Dust Valley Inn. My heart hammered in my chest. I began walking backward, stumbling over papers, until I hit a wall. One of the photos that had fallen from the panel attached there caught my eye. A Polaroid. It showed a smiling man standing next to a coffee table in the motel lobby. The man looked identical to the old man who'd greeted me at the front desk, but in the background of the photo, less clearly standing next to the stairs, and there was me. The same shirt, the same lost look. I started laughing. This time, not nervously. I laughed as if I'd finally gotten the joke. Of course. I've always been here, right? A beat, 2, 3. The sound came from inside the wall. I placed my ear against the moldy plaster. He knows. The voice whispered straight into my skull. I whirled to run and stumbled again. When I got up, I was no longer in the room. I was back in room 108. The mirror was now covered with a black cloth, and on the bed, an old journal. The cover said, maintenance, like a service notebook. Shelter. The first page was a notice, handwritten in blue pen. Never enter 108 by mistake. Never close the door completely. And above all, never look in the mirror when it looks at you first. What the hell did that mean? I turned the pages, and there were records of leaks, repairs, electrical maintenance, until, around 1971, the entries changed. They began to describe phenomena. Light turns on by itself, crying coming from the drain, TV shows old images of the city that no one remembers filming. Mirror responds late. Guest says he sees himself sleeping. Guest doesn't wake up anymore. I turned the page. My name, in capital letters. Ryan Callahan, scheduled return, avoid direct eye contact. I threw the diary away. Now everything was spinning. The light flickered. The ceiling seemed to descend upon me. The mirror covered began to move. The cloth trembled as if there was a wind behind it, and suddenly, it fell. The mirror did not show the room. It showed an endless corridor with closed doors, and in the center, me, running, looking back, as if running away from something. I looked around. I wasn't running, but in the reflection, yes, and behind the mirror version of me, a dark figure, like a charcoal blur in human form. Then the image froze, and the figure looked at me, direct, as if he were seeing me through glass. And in that instant, I remembered. I remembered the first time I was there, from the contract I signed without reading, from the car that broke down on the road in 2007, from the empty reception, the old man giving me the key with a smirk. I remembered sleeping in room 108. I remembered waking up and not going out anymore. I remembered wandering the halls trying to help others, as an employee, as part of the structure. I wasn't a guest. I was the maintenance ghost. I sat in the corner of the room, the carpet damp beneath my legs as if the motel were bleeding from my pores. With each breath, the air seemed thicker. There was no window. There was no door. The room was sealed shut by time. But I remembered now. I remembered the words of the man in the mirror, the knocking at 3:17 in the morning. I remembered that this had already happened, because I was the man who knocked on that door. Not today, years ago, before I was even there, before I forgot, before the cycle started again. That night I knocked on one room's door trying to warn the next. I tried to keep him from entering, but he didn't see me. And now, I was next. Repetition was the prison. The motel made me forget, and made me come back. I stood up. The mirror still showed the hallway. The dark figure was closer now. One detail. She wasn't stepping. She was sliding, as if the ground was avoiding her. I started banging against the walls. I was looking for a crack, an opening, anything that would let me out. There wasn't one. The room was a cell, or worse, a sensory isolation box where reality was reconstructed with corrupted memories. The sound of an old telephone echoed. I glanced at the nightstand. The rotary phone was shaking, vibrating as if it were afraid of itself. To wait on the other side, just a breath. Then, a voice. My voice. If you want to leave, you have to replace. What? There is no way out without exchange. Replacement? No one leaves 108 until someone is brought in their place. I hung up. The figure in the mirror was now so close that its breath condensed on the glass. I started screaming. The ceiling shook. The wall ruptured. Behind it, a spiral staircase made of stone and bones. I descended without thinking. Each step had a name carved into it. Names I recognized. Some from the list I'd seen before. Others of people I knew in real life. Classmates. Neighbors. My aunt. The stairs led to a metal door. Behind it, a room filled with monitors. Black and white cameras showed different rooms, each one with a reflection of myself in different states. Sleeping, screaming, laughing, writing. There was a control panel, a flashing red button. Below it, a label. Start new cycle. I didn't want to shake, but my hand moved on its own, as if my will was already part of the motel's software. Before touching the button, a mirror lit up next to it. It showed a car approaching, a man exiting his vehicle, entering the lobby, speaking to the receptionist, receiving the key to room 108. I didn't know the man, but I sensed he wasn't just any victim. There was something about him, something that reminded me of myself. And then I understood. I could leave, but he would have to stay. The button glowed brighter. The dark figure was behind me now. I could feel it, the smell of rust, the cold, the absence of sound. My finger pressed. Click. The lights went out. The cameras reset. Everything went back to black, and a new sentence appeared. In the mirror, guest changed. Check out allowed. But there was no joy. There was no relief. There was only the certainty that I was part of it now, and that one day I would return too. Because 108 never closes, never forgets, never truly releases. It just lends freedom for a limited time. The Arizona desert opened before my eyes like a fever dream. Orange dust danced in the air. The sky was a purple-gray hue. as if a storm was always about to break but never had the courage. I was outside. For the first time since I checked into that damn motel, I was out of it. The sound of the engine idling brought me back. I was inside my car. The key was in the ignition. The radio was playing an old blues station, with interference and hiss, as if tuned to another era. But the strangest thing? It was the paper on the passenger seat, a stained envelope, with my name handwritten on it, Ryan Callahan. Checkout. Inside, just a key, old, rusty, and a little note. Every debt must be paid. Make the most of the time you have. I looked in the rearview mirror. The motel was still there, imposing, frozen in time. But the sign now said something different. Vacancy, room 108 available. I started the car. The road was empty, stretching like a scar in the desert. But as I drove, something gnawed at me inside. The feeling that I wasn't alone. The back seat, the inside mirror seemed fogged up. I swore I saw a figure, a silhouette sitting behind me. But when I turned, there was nothing. Just hot air and the sound of tires on cracked asphalt. I continued driving for hours. Each town I passed felt strange, as if I'd never existed there before. The names on the signs flashed with errors, as if the letters were jumbled. Nothing made sense. When I finally stopped at a gas station to fill up, the attendant looked at me as if he were seeing a ghost. "Everything all right there, sir? You look like you saw the devil." I got stuck in a motel, in the desert, the Dust Valley Inn. He frowned, then he laughed. Dust Valley? Man, that place burned down in 1972. Nobody's been there since. There's no road to it anymore. No, that's not possible. I was there yesterday. I slept there. I left early this morning. The gas station attendant just shook his head, laughing. You need to rest. Arizona tricks the minds of those who drive too much. Sun and solitude make everyone see things that aren't there. But I knew. I'd been there. I'd exchanged with someone. And room 108, still, called to me. I went back to the car and looked at the envelope. The key glowed faintly, as if it were pulsing. Then I felt it. Something inside me was still there. Because no one leaves whole. The motel takes a piece and leaves something of its own behind. I drove for 2 more days. I slept in normal hotels, hot showers, regular beds. But the 108 visited me in my dreams. In every dream I woke up knocking on the door of myself. And then, on the 3rd day, I received a letter with no return. Address, just a piece of paper. It said, "It's time. We need maintenance." It burned my hands just holding it. Now, if you're still watching, and you've made it this far, you know that motels on Route 66 hide more than just rats and stained carpet. Room 108 is still there, and he always needs someone new. So, next time your car breaks down in the middle of the desert, think twice before accepting the key from the receptionist. Because maybe you're just replacing someone like me. Or maybe you've been there before. Now tell me, where are you watching this story from? And if it were you, would you accept the key? Leave a comment. And if you liked it, subscribe to the channel, because we still have a lot to reveal about the forgotten motels of Route 66. The manager at the Sunset Road Motel told me to avoid room 6. Now I know why. My name is Logan Myers. I'm 38 years old and work as a maintenance technician on telecommunications towers. This means I spend more time on the road than at home. And if there's one thing the road has taught me, it's that it holds secrets, especially after sunset. This story happened last spring when I was assigned to do emergency maintenance on a tower between Gallup and Flagstaff in the heart of Route 66. It was a stretch I knew well, but that night something was different. It was raining lightly and the sky was so dark it felt like night had crept into my truck. Cell phone reception was terrible, and I knew I wouldn't be able to finish the job until dawn. So I decided to do what I always do. Find a cheap roadside motel, spend the night, and continue in the morning. That's when I saw the red neon sign, Sunset Road Motel, vacancies. It was old, but welcoming. The burned letters flickered slowly, as if breathing. I stood in the entrance for a few seconds watching. It was raining enough to blur everything, but I could see the reception area with its yellowish light and a silhouette behind the counter. I parked the truck and got in. The doorbell rang, and a tall, thin man with sunken eyes and a husky voice greeted me. "Good evening, sir. Do you need a room?" "Yes, just to sleep. 1 night." "Perfect. We're almost empty today. I can put you in any room, except room 6. Franzi each." "Why?" He hesitated. Then he smiled, but it was strained only on one side of his mouth. Room 6 has a leak and an electrical problem. Better not risk it. All the others are free. How about 8? I nodded. I didn't care. I just wanted a bed. I signed a form while he took the key, one of those old plastic ones with the number engraved in silver. Before handing me over, he looked into my eyes and said, "Don't try to open room 6, not even out of curiosity. Sometimes the latch is loose. If you hear any noise coming from there, ignore it. Deal?" That made my blood run cold. Agreed. Have a good rest, Mr. Myers. I left the reception desk with the key to room 8 and a growing sense of unease. The motel's exterior was typical of the 1960s. 2 rows of rooms, an exterior hallway with dim lighting, worn brown carpet, and a soda fountain that looked like it hadn't worked since the Reagan administration. Room 8 was at the end of the lower hallway. Room 6 was 2 doors down. I walked past it, slowly. The door was closed, but there were burn marks around the lock, as if someone had pressed hot metal against it, and taped to the doorframe was a handwritten notice. Maintenance. Do not open. I shivered. For a second I considered taking a picture, but something made me keep walking. I entered room 8 and locked the door from the inside. The room was simple, as expected. A double bed, a tube TV, a dresser with a Bible, and a small bathroom in the back. It smelled of bleach with a hint of damp mildew. The sound of rain hitting the metal awning created a hypnotic rhythm. I tried to relax. I turned on the TV, but it only picked up 2 black and white channels, both of which were staticky. I hung up and lay down. But before I turned it off, I heard a noise, a dry click, like a lock being turned. It came from the hallway. I got up and peered out the window. Nothing. It was dark, and the rain coated the glass in slow drops. I sat back down on the bed, trying to rationalize. Probably the manager making rounds, or another guest, until I heard the second sound, a faint knock, then another and another. 3 in total. Straight into the wall that divided my room with room 6. I swallowed hard. I stood up slowly. I pressed my ear to the wall. Nothing. No sound. I touched it with my fingers. It was cold. Too cold. I went back to bed. I closed my eyes, and I dreamed of fire. In the dream, I was standing in front of room 6. The door was open, but there was no interior, just an endless burning hallway, and at the end of it, someone was calling my name. I woke to a loud crack at the window, like something had been thrown at it, but there was nothing. The night was just beginning. Morning arrived with a strange, almost unnatural silence. The sun barely touched the wet asphalt, and everything seemed gray and muggy. The rain had stopped, but the sky remained covered in clouds as heavy as concrete. I got dressed and went for a walk around the motel. My initial plan was to leave early, have breakfast in the neighboring town and head to work, but something kept pulling me back. A feeling that I wasn't finished here yet, and more importantly, I needed to figure out what the hell had happened the night before. I discreetly passed in front of room 6. The door was ajar. My hair stood on end immediately. The "Do Not Open" sign still hung, swinging gently, but there was no tape, no sign of a lock, just darkness inside. I looked around. No sign of the manager or other guests. Still, something inside me screamed at me not to approach, and I obeyed. I went back to reception. The same man was there, with the same expression, as if he hadn't moved all night. The local newspaper was open on the counter, but he wasn't reading it. He just stared at the door. "Good morning, Mr. Myers," he said before I could even open my mouth. "Room 6 is open." He froze. Then he stood up stiffly. "What?" The door was ajar. There was no one around, and the sign went off. He took a deep breath, clearly struggling with something he didn't want to say. "Do me a favor. Get your things, go away. Don't look at that door anymore. Are you going to tell me what's in there?" "I can't, but I can assure you, whatever is behind that door is alive, and it remembers." It's about time. There's something about him that just needs attention. The more you look, the more he responds. I returned to my room without another word, but the uneasiness grew like a stone in my stomach. I quickly gathered my things and loaded them into the truck, but before I left, I went to the soda machine, the old one, with the manual button and cigarette burns on the plastic. I put in a coin out of pure habit. Nothing happened, but as soon as I turned my back, it turned on by itself. The light blinked red, a metallic clang, and then a soda spilled. It was a small glass bottle, no brand, just a yellow label with black letters. Room 6. I stood there, staring at it as if it were a trap. I picked up the bottle. It was cold. It had a screw cap but no seal. When I shook it lightly, I realized the liquid was thicker than soda, like it was viscous. I left the bottle on the ground and got into the truck, but when I tried to start it, nothing. The battery was completely dead, and the hazard lights started flashing on their own, even with the car off. I returned to reception, already frustrated. My car won't start. The battery is dead. The manager didn't even react. He just pointed to an old sign hanging behind him. Those who enter must complete. Exit only after resolution. Is this serious? Nothing here is a joke, Mr. Myers. You want me to go in there, don't you? He didn't answer, but his silence said more than any words. I went back to the hallway. The door to room 6 was now wide open, and from within came a staticky sound, like an old television with no signal, only with more organic overtones, as if something were breathing behind the noise. Took 2 steps forward. The hallway was cold. The overhead light flickered. The wallpaper was peeling. Then I heard, Logan, whispered, hoarse, deep, coming from inside the room. My name. That room knew me. I took another step. He was now less than a meter from the door. I could see the darkness inside. A bed, a chair, a television, flickering to static, and a figure sitting with his back to her, on the edge of the bed. Property, dressed exactly like me. Same jacket, same jeans, same worn-out sneakers. I touched the wall, trying to steady myself, but as he did so, the figure turned to face me, and it was me, identical, but with a decomposed face, as if he had been dead for weeks. His mouth opened, and he smiled. I took a step back. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely hear the rain starting up again outside. The figure in the bed, that version of me, remained there, staring with that crooked smile, his eyes completely opaque, but I swear he blinked. I couldn't move for a few seconds. Instinct screamed to run, but it was as if the ground had turned to wet cement. My mind tried to rationalize, telling me it was a mirror, a trick of the light, or some damn nightmare. But then he got up. The same height, the same movements, but everything was a little more drawn out, as if it were a delayed recording of myself. He raised his right hand, and I involuntarily did the same. And that's when I understood. That wasn't a reflex. It was imitation. The copy watched me, as if learning to be me, and every gesture I made, it repeated with milliseconds of delay, like a macabre theater. The television behind him began to change channels on its own. Each click showed a different version of me, sleeping, eating, driving, even intimate moments no one could have filmed. I broke out in a cold sweat. I took 2 steps back, but the other me also moved forward, with the same steps, as if in sync. That's when the hallway mirror, an old oval mirror, hanging between room 6 and 7, began to creak. He turned around on his own, and reflected, the other me, not me. The reflection in the mirror showed only him, and when he smiled, the mirror cracked from top to bottom. I ran back to reception panting. The manager didn't seem surprised. He just offered me a glass of water. Did you see? That was me. My voice trembled. He moved like me, but it wasn't me. It's not you yet. What do you mean still? What's going on here? He looked out the window. The rain was getting heavier. Every motel carries a story. Some, more than one. Sunset Road carries people. I don't understand. You entered room 6 with the wrong mindset. You thought it was just curiosity. But now he knows you. And everything he knows he copies. If you let him, he'll occupy it. What does it occupy? Your place. That hit me like a punch. Is there any way to undo this? Maybe, if you come in again. But this time, with intention. I felt like I was being pushed into an abyss. My brain screamed at me to abandon everything, but my body was already heading back down the hallway. The door to room 6 was now closed again, but there was something different about it. The doorknob was white, as if frozen, and the door pulsated, like a lung breathing. Before I touched it, I heard footsteps behind me. I turned around, and there he was, my double, walking down the hallway, now without repeating my movements. He was autonomous, unattached. The manager appeared at the reception door, holding something in his hands, a black-framed mirror. It can only exist if it has a reflection, he said. Break the reflection, and you break the bond. I ran to the manager. I grabbed the mirror. I ran back into the hallway. My double was already a few meters away from me, smiling, his eyes growing deeper and deeper. his skin beginning to darken at the edges, as if it were rotting. I lifted the mirror. He stopped. He stood there, staring at his own reflection, and then it started bleeding. From his eyes, his shoulders trembled, his skin cracked. He screamed, a high-pitched sound, half human and half animal, and lunged at the mirror. I broke it. The glass shattered into 1,000 pieces that fell onto the dirty carpet. And in that moment, he disappeared. It didn't fall. It didn't disintegrate. It just disappeared, as if it had never existed. I remained there, kneeling, trembling, with the shards in my hands. The door to room 6 opened slowly. Inside, the bed was empty. The TV was off. But on the floor, right in the center, was a black envelope with my name written in cursive, Logan Myers, shelter. Inside, just a note. You're still here, but he's not completely gone. Wherever there's a reflection, he can come back. I left room 6 as if I was leaving a part of myself behind. Literally. The note was still in my hands, but its meaning throbbed inside my head like a drum. Where there is a reflection, it can return. I couldn't stop staring at mirrored surfaces. Storefront. Windows, shop windows, even the sheen of my car's wet bodywork. In each one I searched for him, for the other. The reception area was empty when I returned. The manager had disappeared. Behind the counter, I found an old key with the number 6 hanging from it, and underneath a yellowed note. The cycle has been broken, but the trail remains. Time to go, Logan. I tried to start the truck again, and it worked right away. The headlights came on. The radio turned on by itself, playing an old song I'd never heard before. Something with a saxophone and distorted vocals, like a record played backwards. I didn't wait any longer. I left the Sunset Road Motel and hit Route 66 without looking in my rearview mirror. Or at least I tried. But as soon as I reached the entrance to the highway, a detour appeared in the path. And even though the GPS told me to go straight, the truck simply turned on its own. The steering stiffened, as if someone was gripping the steering wheel tightly. The AOE dirt road led to a dry, flat field filled with dead bushes. At the end of the road, another motel. But this one looked identical to Sunset Road. Same facade, same color, same neon sign with the missing O. I stopped the car, completely disoriented. No, that's not possible. I went in. The reception was empty. The hallway, the same wallpaper, the same crooked pictures on the walls, the same smell of damp mixed with rust. What about room 6? The door was ajar. Again, I went to her. Inside there was no bed, no TV, no furniture, just a chair facing a giant mirror covering almost the entire back wall. I sat down. Something inside me told me to do this. In the reflection, I appeared normal, but behind me, little by little, something began to emerge. The other, the gray skin, the soulless eyes, the clenched mouth. He put his hands on my shoulders, but I didn't feel anything. It was just a reflex, or so I thought, until one of the hands began to become solid in the mirror, popping out from the surface as if the barrier between worlds was crumbling. I got up desperately. The mirror cracked. I ran out of the room, but as I left the hallway, I came face to face with the reception desk again, as if I had gone back to the beginning. The same bell, the same stopped clock showing 3:06. I rang the bell. Nothing. I rang again, and a hand appeared over mine. Cold, bony, gray. "You still don't get it, Logan," said the manager's voice. But it wasn't him anymore. It was the other me, using his voice. The road is a circle, and the room is a door. I started running again. I climbed stairs I hadn't remembered existed. Hallways stretched out in every direction like a maze. On every door my name was written. Logan Myers, Logan Myers, Logan Myers. As if each room contained a different version of me. In one of them I saw myself as a child. In another, a teenager. In another, dead, hanged, with his eyes open, staring at me. I screamed. I woke up. Yes, I woke up. Inside my car, parked, at the same gas station as the night before. The sun was already rising on the horizon. The clouds had dissipated. Everything was normal. I looked around. No motel, no ruined buildings, no detours. I thought I dreamed it all. But then I noticed the rearview mirror. It was cracked. And there, on the passenger seat, was the unmarked little glass bottle with the label Room 6. The little bottle labeled Room 6 trembled slightly in my hand as I stared at the rising sun through the windshield. For a moment I considered throwing it away, leaving any memory of that nightmare behind me. but something inside me hesitated, as if that thing, despite everything, still had some purpose. I started the car. This time, the management responded normally. The radio tuned to some random instrumental blues station, and the smell of coffee wafting from the convenience store reminded me I hadn't eaten in hours. But before I went, I decided to fill up. As the gas station attendant approached, I noticed he was looking at me strangely, as if he recognized me. "Where are you coming from, friend?" he asked casually. "Sunset Road Motel," I replied, almost without thinking. He stopped. He frowned. "Sunset Road? You mean that motel that burned down in the 80s? I swallowed hard. "Like this?" It was a bad fire. Almost no one survived. They say people still see the place from time to time, like a mirage, but it's never really there. I walk past it every day and see nothing but weeds. I didn't answer. I just nodded, paid, and got back on the road. Route 66 seemed quieter than usual. Cars passed in the distance, but none shared the road with me. The sky was clearing quickly, but the clouds still seemed to carry a strange weight. And with each new kilometer, my rearview mirror revealed something uncomfortable. Reflexes exchanged, inverted signs, shadows where there should be none. At the next gas station, I stopped to use the restroom. When I entered, the mirror over the sink was covered with a black cloth. Curious, I removed the cloth, and there he was, the other one, not behind me but inside the mirror staring back at me. He didn't follow my movements this time. He stood still, his eyes blank as if waiting for something. Then, he smiled. A new crack appeared in the glass. I ran out of the bathroom. I got back into the truck and closed all the mirrors I could. Side mirrors, visors, even the digital clock display. I started driving aimlessly, leaving Route 66, taking back roads, trying to escape something that lived inside my reflections. But it was useless, because each city I reached seemed like an echo of the previous one. The stores had the same names. The people had similar faces. At one diner, the waitress called me Mr. Myers, without me saying anything. At another, I saw a car parked identical to mine, with someone inside wearing the same jacket I was wearing. And when I arrived in a town called Red Hollow, I saw the impossible. Another Sunset Road motel. Identical. Same sign, same layout. Room 6 in the same place. I parked. I went in. The manager was the same man, but older now. Completely white hair, lined skin, but the eyes were the same. "You took a while," he said, as if he knew I was coming. "Is this a cycle? A loop? It's a frame, and you're inside the picture. How do I get out?" He pointed to a cabinet behind him. "It's all here inside, but it only opens when you accept what it really is." "And what am I?" He smiled. "A reflection that has been lost from the original body." My hands shook. "I am the double? Maybe, or maybe, the only one left." The head was spinning. Before I could say anything else, the reception phone rang. The manager answered. "Room 6? Yes, he just arrived." He hung up. He handed me a key. "The journey ends where it began." I took the key, but didn't take a step. Why does everything always lead me back to room 6? Because no matter where you run, Logan, the room is inside you. The key to room 6 burned in my hand. Not literally, but there was a heat there, as if it carried a memory of its own, a will of its own. Every time I blinked, flashes came. The cracked mirror, the smiling reflection, the empty room, the other me. I walked up the stairs to the Sunset Road Motel, the new one, or the old one, or the duplicate one. I didn't know anymore. The hallway was quiet, the lights flickering with that insistent buzz of ancient neon. With each step, the floor seemed to creak as if recognizing my weight. I arrived at the door number 6. I put the key in the lock. Before turning it, I took a deep breath. And then, without waiting any longer, I went in. This time the room was different. Still dark, still damp, but now full of mirrors. On the walls, the ceiling, even the floor. Hundreds of versions of me reflected from impossible angles. Some with my face exactly the same. Others, distorted. White hair, melted face, eyeless, bleeding, hanged, laughing, crying, screaming. In the center of the room was a round bed slowly rotating. Lying on it was myself, but not sleeping, mortified, pale, glazed eyes, an expression of someone who saw something they shouldn't have. I approached slowly. The prone me followed me with its eyes. Its mouth opened, and instead of words, a horrible sound came out, like metal being dragged across stones. The sound reverberated through the mirrors, each reflection now repeating that scream with varying intensities like a mob, out of control. I covered my ears, but it was no use. The walls began to vibrate. The mirror frames shook. Some cracked, and then a slit opened in the center of the main mirror. From her emerged the original reflection, the first, the one with the dead eyes, the one with the broken smile, the same one from the beginning. He walked towards me, but this time, I didn't run. "What do you want?" He stopped in front of me, then he raised his hand, placing it flat on my chest, and when he did, the whole room went dark. No light, no sound, just me and him, and then the two of us breathing together, in the same rhythm. "You can't run away from who you are," he said, but now in my voice. "Am I you? You always were? Is this real? You've been awake too long, Logan. What if I stop?" He smiled. Then the other one wakes up. I woke up, at the same gas station as before, only now it was night. Not a living soul was around. My car was off, out of gas. My cell phone was dead. The store door was chained shut, and on the passenger seat, a key with the number 6. I looked in the rearview mirror. It was clean, no cracks, but I wasn't there. The space where my face should have been was empty. The empty bench reflected, as if I no longer existed. And if you've made it this far with me, I need to know. Have you ever been somewhere that seemed too repetitive? Have you ever felt like you were stuck in a never-ending cycle? Comment below where you're watching from, and if you've ever stayed at a motel that seemed too strange to be just a coincidence. If this story gave you goosebumps, like the video and subscribe to the channel. There's much more to come, and I guarantee you, the next stop could be your own reflection. I booked a room at the Desert Rose Motel, but the last guest was still there, and he wasn't alive. All I wanted was a night's rest. After nearly 12 hours of driving Route 66, alone with the radio blaring and the sky threatening to collapse, my only goal was to find a cheap room, a decent bed, and some quiet. My final destination was Los Angeles, but at that pace, I'd only be able to cross the entire length of Arizona in at least 2 days. Around 9 o'clock, my eyes began to feel heavy, and that's when I saw the half-faded sign for the Desert Rose Motel, blinking smoky red. It was one of those old motels, probably from the 1960s, with a neon facade that had seen better days. There was a dead rosebush at the entrance, hunched over, as if apologizing for still standing. The parking lot was nearly empty. Only an old sedan and a pickup truck with no wheels occupied 2 of the spaces. The sign read, "Vacancy." The V was partially erased. I parked in front of the reception area, turned, off the engine, and got out. The air was dry, hot as the blast of a furnace, but something about the wind gave me chills. The doorbell rang as I entered. The reception hall was empty, lit only by a single yellowed pendant light. A ceiling fan spun slowly, as if too lazy to cool anything. Behind the counter, a thin man with sunken eyes suddenly appeared, as if he had emerged from the darkness. "Welcome to the Desert Rose," he said, his voice as rough as the registration paper he pushed toward me. "Just one night?" I nodded, typing my name in weary letters. He handed me the key to room 3. It was metal, with the number engraved in dark red. "The Wi-Fi is bad," he warned, "but there's ice in the machine outside, if it still works." I tried to force a smile. "Any other guests today?" He hesitated for a second. "Just a gentleman in room 4. He arrived 2 days ago. I haven't seen him leave yet." It was the room next to mine. I grabbed the key and walked outside, down the side hallway that led to the bedrooms. Each door was painted a faded shade of beige. The cracked cement floor creaked beneath my footsteps. Room 3 was there, its doorknob scratched. Room 4, next door, had an iron chair leaning against the wall, and a full ashtray, the kind of detail you notice but try to ignore. I opened the door to my room. The smell came first. Mildew, stale cigarettes, and something else. Sweet, like dead flowers. The overhead light flickered when turned on, casting shadows on the stained walls. The bed was round, a forgotten luxury of bygone days, and the wallpaper had red roses that seemed to bleed over the edges. I put my backpack on the chair and went straight to the bathroom. Nothing much different than expected. A stained mirror, a sink with a creaky faucet, a shower that probably spits out cold water. I lay down on the bed and closed my eyes for a moment. But then, I heard something, a noise coming from the wall next door, something between a creak and a muffled whisper, like someone dragging themselves across the carpet, or like Something was being dragged. I turned my face to the wall that divided my room from room 4. Another noise. Weak touches. 3 times. As if someone was knocking, but not wanting to attract attention. I waited. Maybe it was that man. Maybe he was asking for help. Maybe... Talk. I stood up slowly, my bare feet touching the cold floor. I put my ear to the wall. Silence. Until a breath came from the other side. Slow, heavy, and a phrase, almost inaudible. He's still here. I walked away, my heart racing. Did I hear right? I looked out the window. Nothing in the parking lot but my car. I opened the door and walked to room 4. The light under the door was on. To 1. Sir? Everything okay there? Silence. I knocked again. Do you need help? A strange smell escaped through the crack at the bottom of the door. It was strong. Ferrous. I reached for the doorknob. It was unlocked. Shelter. And then I saw... The next part delves deeper into the mystery. If you're with me this far, comment below. What's the strangest thing that's ever happened to you in a hotel or on a trip? And where are you watching from? Like and subscribe if you want more stories like this. And hold on tight. The Desert Rose Motel still holds secrets you won't forget. The door to room 4 opened with a slow creak, as if resisting revealing what it hid. The dim light from a bedside lamp partially illuminated the interior. The room was similar to mine. Same faded carpet, same floral wallpaper, but the air inside was dense, as if time had stopped days ago. And there, in the center of the bed, lying on his side, he was. A man, in a suit, standing still, pale, with open eyes fixed on the ceiling. For a moment I froze. I could be sleeping. I could. But there was something wrong. The stiffness, the pallor, the absence of any movement, not even the subtle breathing of a living body. Sir, my voice came out shaky. Nothing. I took a hesitant step into the room, feeling the metallic smell intensify. A combination of old blood, stagnant sweat, and something that resembled decaying flowers. I moved closer, trying to see the man's face. He had hard features, a scruffy beard, and he looked calm. Too calm, even. That's when I noticed the flies. 2, buzzing near the half-open mouth, and the skin on the side of the neck, a yellowish hue, with purplish edges. There was no doubt. That man was dead. I took 2 steps back, gasping, and tripped over the fallen chair on the floor. My body hit the wall with a dull thud, causing the lamp to wobble. And in that brief instant, his eyes moved. I swear by all that is holy. He looked at me. It was a tiny blink, but I saw it. Run. I left the room and slammed the door shut, nearly knocking the key out of my hand. The air outside seemed cleaner, more alive, but the despair did not pass. I walked down the hall to the reception desk. The manager was still there, reading an old newspaper as if nothing had happened. "There's a dead man in room 4, I shouted. He looked up, calm. I know. That froze me. What do you mean, you know? He arrived on Friday. He said he wanted some time alone. He paid in advance. Since then, no one has bothered him. He's dead, I insisted. It's been days. The manager took a deep breath, placing the newspaper on the counter. And you saw him die? I froze. No, but it's cold. There are flies. It smells like decay. Then maybe he's just sleeping, he said with a half smile. This is insane, I yelled. Call the police, the body is there. I already called. 2 days ago. They came. They said he was fine, that it was just fatigue. They didn't want to come in. They left. I felt my head spin. This is crazy. He leaned across the counter, and the tone of his voice changed. Why don't you go back to your room? Take a shower. Tomorrow is a new day. Breakfast starts at 7. And then he handed me a small piece of paper, folded, aged with finger marks. That was in his record. Maybe it will help you understand. I took the note, my hands trembling. If you're reading this, it means he's still here. Don't talk to him. Don't look him in the eye. And most of all, don't open the door after midnight. I looked up, but the manager had already disappeared into the dark corridor behind reception. I stood there for seconds, paralyzed. Then I slowly walked back to my room. As I walked past the door to room 4, again, something was different. The iron chair was gone, the ashtray was empty, and the light, previously on under the door, was now off. But you could still hear it. Soft footsteps, inside the room. I entered my room and locked the door 3 times. I ran to the window and closed the curtains. I turned on the TV, searching for any sound that would mask the outside noise. But the channel was off the air. Blue screen, white hiss. I lay on the bed, the note clutched in my hand. My heart was pounding so loudly. It was then that the digital clock on the nightstand glowed red, 12 a.m., punctually, and someone knocked on the door 3 times. Tap, tap, tap. If it were you, would you open the door? Let me know what you do in the comments. And if this story is catching your attention, like and subscribe. Things at Desert Rose are just beginning to unfold. I stood still. My hand still held the note tightly, as if the words on it could protect me. The knocking on the door stopped, but there were no footsteps, no sound of anyone moving away, just silence, a deep, oppressive silence, as if the very air around them had frozen. I slowly got up and walked to the door. I put my eye through the peephole, even though my instincts screamed at me not to. The corridor was empty, but something in the corner of the screen bothered me. A dark blur on the floor, pressed against the wall to the right, like a poorly formed shadow, but there was no one there. I walked away and went back to bed. I grabbed my cell phone to call the police, but there was no signal, not a single bar, and the motel's Wi-Fi was non-existent. I thought about leaving, getting in the car and leaving, but when I opened the curtain to look at the parking lot, my car was no longer there. I looked again, thinking it might be paranoia, confusion from the darkness, or the wrong angle. Nothing. The car had simply disappeared. I ran to the door, unlocked it, and walked out. The hallway seemed darker than before. The flickering light at the edge of the ceiling hummed, creating shifting shadows. I walked to the space where my car should have been. Empty. There were no tire tracks, no sign that it had been there, as if it had never arrived. The reception was now dark. I knocked on the glass door, but no one answered. I pushed. It was locked. I ran back to my room, and on the way, I instinctively looked at the door to room 4. It was ajar. Through the crack, I saw the dark interior, and something on the floor. I approached slowly. It was the iron chair back in place just like before, and inside the room the man, still lying on the bed, but now his feet were turned the opposite way, and the head was turned directly toward the door. His eyes were open, staring at me. I slammed the door shut and ran back to my room. I locked everything again. I sat up in bed, trying to figure out if I was going crazy. It was then that I heard the most disturbing sound of the night. The TV, which was turned off, turned on by itself. Blue screen. And then a grainy image appeared. It was my room. The footage was being shot from high up, from a corner near the ceiling. As if there were a hidden camera there, I would appear sitting on the bed, staring at the screen, just like now. And then, behind me in the footage, something moved. I turned my face at the same moment, but there was nothing there. I turned my gaze back to the TV. Now the image showed room 4. The man was standing with his back turned, looking at the wall. On the screen, he turned slowly, very slowly, and he said, looking straight into the camera, "You shouldn't be here." The image faded. The room went dark. The power went out. Even the overhead light didn't work. I took the flashlight from my phone and shined it on the corner of the ceiling where the camera seemed to be. There was something there, a small lens embedded in the plaster, camouflaged by the paint, and right next to it, a red stain that was running discreetly down the wall. I ran to the door once more, determined to get out of that place no matter what, but the door wouldn't open. The key turned, but the lock was stuck. It was at that moment that I heard the scariest sound yet. 3 beats, but not at the door. In the bathroom mirror. Slowly I walked there, guided by the light of the flashlight. The mirror was all foggy, as if someone had just taken a hot shower, and in the center of it, written with his finger, was the phrase, "You're next." I staggered away, tripped on the rug, and fell to my knees on the bedroom floor. The walls seemed to close in. The wallpaper pulsed as if it were alive. I needed to get out, somehow. But then an idea came to me. I took the ticket the manager gave me. On the back, there was writing in a different handwriting, as if someone else had used the same paper, a phone number, and a message. If he wakes up, call him, but only once. After that, run. The number started with the Arizona area code, and I was going to call, even without signal, even without logic, because deep down, something inside me knew that motel wasn't just old. It was a place where the rules of the real world didn't apply, and where not all the guests were human. If you're with me this far, comment "I wouldn't open that door" in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe, because the story of the Desert Rose Motel is about to get even more bizarre. I held the paper with the number for over 20 minutes. His hand trembled. His breathing was heavy, Every second was filled with the sound of something crawling inside the walls. A dry, uneven noise, like fingers brushing against wood. I looked at the number again. It didn't make sense. There was no signal. The Wi-Fi was dead. But my phone showed a single bar. It was now or never. I touched the number. He called. 1 touch, 2, 3, until someone answered, but nobody spoke. There was only a distant sound, like an old, scratched recording playing. On a tape deck, a piano, soft, melancholy, and then a voice. Male, husky, almost a whisper. "Did you open the door?" "Who are you?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Don't open the door. Don't talk to him. And for God's sake, don't go back to room 4. I saw him. He moved. He looked at me. Silence. Then, one more sentence. Then you have little time." The call dropped. I looked at the phone, and the signal bar was gone again. Off. No battery. As it was at 87% minutes ago. I threw my cell phone on the mattress and got up. The darkness in the room was almost physical now, an absence of light that swallowed everything around it. And then, footsteps outside. This time, heavier, determined, passing through the corridor, coming towards my door. They sounded like they were dragging something, perhaps an injured foot or a heavy iron object. The sound scraped the floor and made the carpet creak. I put my ear to the door. Silence. But on the other side, a breath, panting, long, warm, as if something huge was standing right there, touching the wood with your forehead. Suddenly the doorknob turned. Locked. But she tried again, and again, and again, each attempt more aggressive, more impatient, as if he knew I was there, listening, trapped, unable to escape. I ran into the bathroom and closed the door, locking it with the old latch. I turned on the light. It worked. The first light bulb that worked from the beginning, but what I saw in the mirror almost made me faint. My reflection was there, but behind me in the glass there was something that wasn't physically there in the bathroom. A tall figure, dark, faceless, just an outline, that pulsed in time with my breathing. I spun around fast. Nothing. I turned back to the mirror, and he was still there. I moved closer, mesmerized by the reflection. The figure placed his hand on the side of the mirror frame, and I felt it. I felt fingers touching my real shoulder, guided. I closed my eyes tightly, let out a muffled scream, and threw myself against the wall, leaving the bathroom. The room now seemed even more distorted. The colors were washed out, as if a sepia filter had been applied to everything. There was more furniture than before. A second bed, a torn armchair in the corner, and an old record player playing. The same piano as the call. I didn't remember any of this when I walked in, but now it was there. The record spun, and in the center of it, someone had scrawled in red marker, "He's stuck here." I looked back at the original note. There was one more line now visible under the old fold. "If you can make it to room 0, you might still have a chance." Room 0? That didn't make sense. There was no room 0. I took the key from my pocket. Mine was for room 5, but something about it seemed to have changed. The number was now half faded. A crooked 5, almost a 0. Could it be? A knock interrupted me. Not at the door. In the wardrobe. Someone was inside him, or something. I sat on the floor, my back to the wall, my heart pounding. I put my hands to my ears, but I still listened. Whispers, dozens of them, coming from inside the walls, from the carpet, from the ceiling. They said my name. They repeated like a mantra, calling me to something I didn't want to see. Is this story making you light up? Then comment, Desert Rose isn't just a pretty name, and leave that somber like, the journey isn't over yet. The idea that there was a room 0 consumed me. I turned over, every scrap of the note searching for more clues. There was nothing but that handwritten number in faded ink, and the almost whispered warning, "You might still have a chance." The key in my hand began to feel different. The metal seemed darker, older, and the number engraved on it now truly looked like a 0. The 5 had disappeared completely, as if it had never been there. I gathered my courage, left the room, and returned to the hallway. The environment was unrecognizable. The faded wallpaper now had cracks that snaked up to the ceiling. The light at the end of the hallway flickered in a strange pattern, almost like Morse code. I started toward the reception, but stopped when I realized the hallway had changed length. It was longer. The space where the front door had been now led to more rooms, all unnumbered. And then, at the end of the new corridor, I saw it. A black door. No number, no doorknob, no doorbell, but my key was shaking in my hand. I approached. The door seemed to absorb the light around it. It was dull, opaque, like wet coal. I brought the key closer, and without even touching it, the lock revealed itself, as if it had been drawn on the spot, directly into the wood. Gurey, it opened on its own. The room was completely dark, but I felt something pulling my body inside. A cold wind, but it didn't move my hair or my clothes. It was as if it was blowing inside my soul. I took a step inside. The hallway lights went out behind me. I closed my eyes. I kept walking. Inside the room, the silence was total. There wasn't even a sound from my own body. My heart was beating, but it didn't make any noise. It was as if my eardrums had been shut off. Gradually, a faint light appeared in front of me. It was a chair, lit by a hanging lamp. A man was sitting on it. It was the same as room 4, but different. He was now staring at me with completely black eyes. No pupils, no reflection, just liquid darkness. "You've been here a long time," he said. "I just arrived." "No, you arrived 3 days ago, but your mind still believes it was today. It's not possible. Look at your hand." I raised my hand. She was wrinkled, pale, as if she had aged 10 years in just a few hours. "This place," I murmured. "Is it killing me?" The man did not answer. He just pointed to a door behind him. It was a mirror, but in the reflection there was no me. The image showed the room empty, just the chair, the lamp, and the man, not to me. "Do you want to go out?" he asked. His voice now doubled, as if two people were speaking at once. I nodded. "Then take his place," he said, pointing behind him. "I'll come." There was a body lying on the floor. It was mine, or rather a version of me. Eyes open, skin ashen, a trickle of blood running from my ear. Is this a game? A test? This is the Desert Rose Motel. Nobody comes in here by accident, and nobody leaves the same way they came in. The lights flickered. When they returned, the man had disappeared. The chair was empty, but now on my chest there was a mark, a rose-shaped burn, the same one on the motel sign. From the mirror, I heard one last sentence, spoken in my own voice. "You're in room 0 now. Be a good host." The image exploded with a crack. The mirror cracked. I ran outside. The corridor was now a dark tunnel, made of rotting wood, pulsating walls and muffled screams. I walked on without looking back. At the end, there was a door with light outside. It was the reception. I managed to get out, but outside, it was daytime. The sun was scorching, and the desert was different. No cars on the road, no noise, and where the Desert Rose Motel sign once stood, there was only sand, as if everything had disappeared, but the ticket was still in my pocket, with a new sentence written, "Welcome back, guests are waiting. If you've listened this far, comment, Quarto Zero Mi Chamada, and leave your dark like. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, well, this might be your only chance to escape too." I stood for long minutes on the side of the road, staring into space. The desert was just that now. Nothing. No trace of a motel, not even footprints in the sand. The sun was blazing like never before, and yet I felt cold. A coldness that came from within, as if my soul were frozen. I decided to walk, to try to find help. I walked for miles in the merciless heat until I finally heard the roar of a distant engine. A truck was approaching on Route 66. I waved. I nearly fell to my knees when the driver stopped. He was an old man with a worn cap and tired eyes. He offered me water. He asked where I was. "Desert Rose Motel," I replied, almost voiceless. He frowned. "That hasn't existed for over 40 years. I swallowed hard. I tried to reason, describe the sign, the rooms, the receptionist, but he just shook his head. "That place caught fire. It was in 1983. They say the fire started in room 4, after a man went crazy and locked everyone in. There, no one got out." But I stopped. "I was there yesterday." The driver gave me a strange look. "Look, buddy, you're dehydrated. It happens to a lot of people around here. You see things, you lose track of time. Let's get you to a hospital, okay?" I nodded. I got into the truck. On the way, I opened my backpack. The note was still there, but now with a new sentence, written in ink as dark as dried blood. "You took him with you." I felt my stomach churn. I looked at the truck's side mirror. For a second, I swear I saw someone's reflection in the back seat, but I was alone. Or should be. We arrived at a nearby town, one of those with only 2 traffic lights and a gas station. They dropped me off at the local hospital. They checked my blood pressure, gave me an IV, and said it was just exhaustion. But since then, something has been wrong. The light in my hospital room flickers like the one in the motel hallway. The TV, even when turned off, emits a slight hiss in the early hours of the morning. And every night at exactly 2:46, I hear a knock on the door. Always one. I never open it. But this morning, I found a room key on the dresser. Old key, darkened bronze, accurately engraved number, room 0. No one could explain to me how she ended up there. Ever since I left that desert, I've started noticing strange patterns. People staring at me for longer than usual. Shadows that don't behave as they should. Mirrors that return reflections. Late. It's like I brought something with me. Or maybe I became what the other was. A kind of echo of the motel. A ghost of flesh. From time to time I hear whispers close to my ear, even in crowds. Time to go back. And the scariest thing, every time I close my eyes, I'm there again. In room 0. The chair, the mirror, the rose branded into my chest, burning again. Maybe I never left. Maybe this world here is just another layer of that motel. Maybe you've joined now too. Just hearing that, and if you've listened to the end, take a good look around. Do you have any keys near you? Any knocking sounds in the distance? Because Desert Rose Motel never forgets a guest. He just waits for the next one. If you've survived this far, comment, "I've been to the Desert Rose Motel," and leave your dark like. And if you haven't signed up yet, maybe the next room is yours. See you in the next story. Or maybe on the other side of the door.